April 7th, 1945, 7 o'clock hours. East China Sea, approximately 200 miles south of Kyushu. A low layer of morning haze drifts across the water as the battleship Yamato, flagship of the Imperial Japanese Navy's combined fleet, advances southwest at about 12 knots. The ship's movement is steady, its wake stretching in a long white band behind a formation known in wartime documents as the Yamato Surface Special Attack Force. The group is recorded in the operational logs of the Second Fleet and includes the light cruiser Yahagi and 8 destroyers, Isokais, Hamikais, Yukikais, Asashimo, Suzutsuki, Fuyuzuki, Kasumi, and Hatsushimo wind brushes across the steel flight deck of the U.S. carrier USS Yorktown, CV-10, far to the east. At roughly the same moment, support crews on Yorktown and other carriers of Task Force 58 prepare aircraft for launch. Their actions, refueling, arming, and inspecting are documented in squadron action reports and post-mission debriefings preserved by the U.S. Naval Historical Center. Aboard Yamato, the atmosphere is described in testimony from survivors and compiled in post-war interviews by the Defense Agency of Japan. There is no music, no ceremony. Only the routine sound of ventilation fans, the hum of engines deep below the armored decks, and the quiet movement of crew performing duties recorded in the ship's quarterdeck logs. Officers from the Second Fleet staff follow the same procedures they have adhered to for months. But the mission is unlike any they have taken before. Today's sortie, Operation Tengo, is acknowledged in official Japanese naval orders as a one-way mission. Yamato's fuel supplies reflect this reality. Archival records detail that she was given only enough fuel to reach Okinawa at high speed, engage U.S. forces near the landing beaches, and then continue until fuel ran out. The plan is described in the testimony of Vice Admiral Seiichi Ito, the force commander, who approved the orders despite private reservations noted by surviving staff officers in post-war statements. The weather remains calm as the morning progresses. The crew can hear a light breeze sweeping across the forward deck and the rhythmic motion of the ship cutting through small waves. For the viewer, this moment invites reflection. You are watching what the sailors saw. Not a chaotic battlefield, but a quiet sea under overcast skies. Just after 8 o'clock, U.S. reconnaissance aircraft, TBM Avengers from Yorktown's VT-9 and VB-17, along with fighters from VF-9, sight Yamato's formation. Their sightings are recorded precisely in mission logs and strike group reports. Pilots circle at high altitude, confirming the unmistakable silhouette of the world's heaviest battleship. A 72,000-ton vessel with its massive 46 centimeters, 18.1-inch guns, the largest ever mounted on a warship. These aircraft return to their carriers with bearings and estimated speeds. Communications transcripts compiled after the war show that these reports immediately initiate the assembly of multiple strike groups across Task Force 58. By mid-morning, hundreds of aircraft are preparing to launch from USS Essex, USS Intrepid, USS Bennington, USS Hornet, USS Yorktown, USS Bunker Hill, and others. Aboard Yamato, lookouts report distant aircraft contrails to the command bridge shortly before 10 o'clock. The first formal entries noting enemy planes sighted at bearing ___ appear in reconstructed battle logs based on survivor testimony and the official action record created after the war by the Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force historical team. Sailors can see thin white streaks far above the cloud line. Nothing else. No sound yet. Only the quiet presence of shapes at a height beyond the ship's reach. For now, Yamato continues forward in formation, following the operation's assigned course toward Okinawa. The crew knows the mission's objective because it was formally read to them. The force is to advance toward the U.S. landing fleet, attempt to disrupt operations, and then continue until unable to proceed. The wording appears in surviving operational documents, clear, concise, and final. Far to the east, U.S. pilots begin climbing into Avenger torpedo bombers and Helldiver dive bombers. Many of these aircraft, constructed largely of wood, aluminum framing, and canvas-covered surfaces, are powered up in an orderly process that appears repeatedly in onboard carrier film footage and maintenance logs. Chocks removed, engines warmed, wings locked, and crews conducting last-minute checks. The stage is set by verifiable events. The sea is calm. The air is cool. Both sides prepare for an encounter that will soon enter naval history. April 7th, 1945. Late morning. East China Sea. Cloud layers shift slowly overhead as Task Force 58 strike groups assemble across multiple carrier decks. The events of this hour are preserved in the U.S. Navy's action reports, pilot narratives, and the detailed after-action summaries filed by the Fast Carrier Task Force. These records show the methodical pace of U.S. preparations. Nothing in the process is rushed. Spotters guide aircraft forward on the flight decks, signaling with standardized hand motions described in Navy flight operation manuals. Engines rise to a steady hum, forming the background sound of a fully mobilized carrier group. On USS Bennington, CV-20, pilots of Air Group 82 note in their written accounts that the morning air is cool and visibility is moderate. Their TBM Avengers receive torpedo loads, and SB-2C Helldivers are fitted with demolition bombs. Standard armaments documented in pre-strike loading sheets archived in the National Naval Aviation Museum. The aircraft themselves, despite their rugged reputation, still retain the simple construction of their designs. Wood reinforcements, canvas-covered control surfaces, and aluminum frames. Maintenance reports frequently refer to these features while emphasizing their reliability during long Pacific operations. At approximately 10:15, the first wave of aircraft lifts from the decks. This occurs almost simultaneously across several carriers. Eyewitness recollections describe the brief pause before the launch officer drops his flag, an established signal that appears in multiple film reels from the era. One by one, aircraft descend the length of the deck, gather speed, and rise into the air, banking west toward the reported position of the Japanese force. The climb continues steadily. Pilots from Yorktown's VB-9 later recall in mission interviews that the route westward was marked by layers of scattered cloud, offering moments of sunlight followed by areas of diffuse gray. As they proceed, formation leaders navigate using compass bearings and pre-briefed intercept points. The sense of distance, close to 200 miles, was a known factor in planning, recorded clearly in Admiral Mark Mitcher's operational orders issued that morning. Meanwhile, aboard Yamato, personnel on the command bridge receive incremental updates from lookouts posted along the superstructure. Surviving accounts from officers such as Captain Tamichi Hara, serving on the destroyer Yukikase, confirm that the first sightings of large incoming formations were relayed across the task force through visual signals and radio reports. These communications allowed the formation to maintain a cohesive defensive posture as aircraft shapes gradually became visible far above the horizon. As midday approaches, atmospheric conditions remain consistent. The sea is described in both American and Japanese records as relatively smooth, punctuated only by low swells. For those observing, it creates a contrast, a quiet surface beneath an increasingly active sky. The U.S. strike groups continue to converge. Their flight paths are carefully documented in navigation logs, showing arcs that position Avengers and Helldivers for coordinated timing. The planning accounts for altitude, approach angle, and spacing, a method emphasized in carrier air operations since 1943 and visible in tactical training notes preserved in naval archives. Pilots maintain radio discipline using short, standardized phrases. While most transmissions went unrecorded due to the limitations of the era, the structure of their communication is known from squadron operating procedures. Altitude checks, formation status, and confirmations of visual contact. Shortly before noon, forward elements of the first strike wave report that they can now distinguish the Japanese formation with clarity. The silhouettes of Yamato and her escorts are unmistakable. U.S. pilots describe the battleship's appearance in several post-mission interviews. Its long hull, characteristic pagoda-style superstructure, and the distinctive turrets that had made it a symbol of Japan's naval ambitions as the U.S. aircraft close the distance. The Japanese formation maintains its assigned course. Notations compiled in the reconstructed battle timeline indicate that Vice Admiral Ito and Captain Kosaku Ariga, Yamato's commanding officer, remain on the bridge, observing developments and receiving reports at regular intervals. Their positions during the operation are described consistently across multiple survivor testimonies. Over the next minutes, the converging formations set the conditions for one of the most historically significant engagements in naval aviation. No dramatic gestures are recorded. No extraordinary statements survive in the documents. Only the structured, measured steps of two forces advancing toward their encounter. The first wave prepares to begin its approach run. April 7, 1945, approaching 12:20, East China Sea. The first U.S. strike wave is now within organized approach distance. Formation leaders from Yorktown, Intrepid, Bennington, and Essex signal their groups to adjust spacing movements consistent with the guidelines taught in carrier air group training and referenced repeatedly in squadron reports filed after the battle. The sky ahead is layered with haze, allowing aircraft to descend gradually without losing visual contact with each other. From their altitude, pilots can see Yamato's wake stretching in a long, white arc. The ship's position, estimated at roughly 30 degrees north latitude and 128 degrees east longitude during this phase of the sortie, matches entries in both US and Japanese post-war reconstructions. Her escorts maintain alternating screen positions, a formation described in detail by officers on Yukikes, Suzutsuki, and Fuzuki in interviews decades later. As the aircraft draw closer, they reorganize by task. Helldivers gain altitude to prepare for controlled dive sequences, while Avengers remain lower to set up torpedo approaches, standard practice documented in U.S. Navy tactical manuals and reflected in the mission plans for Operation Tengo. Pilots observe no sudden maneuvering from Yamato. The ship continues forward at a recorded speed that Japanese reconstruction data places between 20 and 22 knots during this phase. The weather remains stable: light wind, moderate visibility, and a smooth sea surface. These environmental conditions appear consistently across battle records from both sides. At approximately 12:24, according to the synchronized timeline prepared after the war, the first U.S. formations begin descending into their planned approach brackets. Notes from the commanders of Air Group 9 and Air Group 17 mention the importance of approaching from multiple directions, a method designed to divide the defensive fire of the Japanese formation. Although gunnery descriptions are present in many reports, the operational language used by pilots is procedural and succinct. Their comments focus on timing, visual references, and formation coordination. Aboard Yamato, bridge personnel continue tracking the incoming aircraft as they descend. Reports from spotters are relayed through the ship's internal communication network. Speaker tubes and telephones documented in the vessel's technical blueprints and described by surviving crew. Officers record bearings, altitude estimates, and formation counts. No first-hand Japanese source describes panic or disorder. Instead, accounts emphasize adherence to routine procedures and the steady execution of assignments. From the perspective of the U.S. pilots, the Japanese formation remains cohesive. The destroyers keep station around their flagship, and the cruiser Yahagi maintains her screening position, though American pilot reports note her smaller silhouette compared to Yamato's massive frame. These observations appear in multiple debriefings preserved by the Naval History and Heritage Command. As the strike wave commits to its final approach, the formations stretch across several miles. Pilots describe the coordinated timing: Avengers aligning for torpedo entries at low altitude, Helldivers holding altitude before beginning their dives. The accuracy of this timing is reflected in the detailed mission summaries filed that evening aboard the carriers, which include distance estimates, release points, and approach angles. The atmosphere at this point is described in many accounts as focused and procedural. There are no dramatic exclamations recorded in the logs, only the structured communication required for coordinated carrier operations. Pilots keep their transmissions short, relying on rehearsed signals and timing rather than extended radio traffic. Below, Yamato and her escorts maintain their assigned course. Officers on the ship note the number of incoming aircraft increasing rapidly as more formations appear through the haze. These visual reports are recorded in the Japanese battle narrative compiled after the war from survivor statements. The ship's movement remains consistent, steady through the midday light. Within moments, the first wave reaches its designated release points. The opening phase of one of the most documented carrier air engagements of the Pacific War is now underway, recorded through flight logs, battle diaries, and testimony from both sides. April 7, 1945, approximately 12:30 to 1300 hours, East China Sea. The first strike wave now commits to full attack profiles. Their movements are preserved in the recorded flight paths and timing summaries submitted by multiple carrier air groups, offering a detailed view of how the engagement unfolded. Helldivers from USS Intrepid's VB-10, operating at higher altitude, adjust their wings and begin controlled descent patterns. Pilots later described in interviews how they aligned their approach using Yamato's long central deck as a reference point. an identification detail commonly noted in dive bomber reports throughout the Pacific War. Above them, sunlight filters through thin layers of haze, creating intermittent brightness that allows pilots to maintain consistent visual contact with their targets. Far below, Avengers from VT-9, VT-17, VT-47, and other squadrons reposition into lateral spacing to begin their torpedo runs. Action reports filed aboard the carriers after the engagement document the step-by-step method used. Establish altitude, confirm alignment, and maintain a steady approach toward the moving formation. These procedures were standard U.S. Navy practice and appear repeatedly in training publications and pilot debriefings. Yamato's course remains steady. Japanese post-war battle studies, compiled from the accounts of surviving officers, record that Vice Admiral Ito and Captain Ariga continue receiving frequent updates from lookout stations. Spotters on the foremast and high platforms call out bearing changes and approach directions as new groups of aircraft appear. The ship's bridge personnel maintain a continuous flow of information to the officers overseeing the operation at the same time. The destroyer Yukike's, led by Captain Tamichi Hara, holds its station along the formation's perimeter. Hara's later writings describe the professionalism of crews during this portion of the encounter, emphasizing the calm and orderly manner in which duties were carried out. Although the operational demands were intense, surviving officers consistently mentioned that personnel followed established procedures without interruption. The U.S. strike waves now arrive from multiple bearings, reflecting the coordinated planning that appears in the operational orders of Admiral Mitcher's Task Force 58. Helldivers descend from above while Avengers approach at lower altitude. Aerial photographs taken during the sortie, preserved in U.S. Navy archives, show groups of American aircraft entering their attack runs in broad, well-spaced formation patterns. From the air, pilots observe Yamato's full length clearly. Her distinctive pagoda-style superstructure and the symmetry of her triple-gun main turrets create unmistakable visual landmarks. These details, noted in pilot debriefings, helped aviators confirm their alignment during approach. The ship's deck appears clean and uncluttered, consistent with its design plans, with aircraft handling installations removed earlier in the war. The Japanese formation continues moving southwest at operational speed. Testimony from survivors on Hamike's, Isoke's, and Asashimo, destroyers positioned around Yamato, emphasizes that each ship maintained its assigned spacing and orientation as aircraft approached from different angles. These accounts consistently mention the steady execution of duties by crews across the formation as the coordinated strike's progress. The atmosphere in both forces reflects a focus on procedure rather than improvisation. U.S. pilots rely on formation discipline and standard attack profiles documented in their action reports. Japanese officers adhere to navigation and command routines reflected in reconstructed battle logs. The engagement moves forward through planned sequences rather than abrupt or chaotic shifts. Around the midpoint of the hour, U.S. commanders transmit updates confirming the initial results of the coordinated approach. The sequence of strikes is timed so that additional waves can enter the area without interfering with the formations already committed. This functioning of successive attack groups is reflected in the organized layout of the day's strike schedule, preserved in the Task Force 58 operational summary. The first wave begins clearing the target area as subsequent groups prepare to arrive. For viewers, this moment represents the transition point in the engagement, an event shaped entirely by documented decisions, recorded timing, and verifiable actions by personnel on both sides. The operation continues into its next phase as additional U.S. formations close in on Yamato and her escorts, following the same structured, well-documented procedures that define the opening strikes. April 7, 1945, early afternoon, 13 to 1400 hours. East China Sea. As the first wave withdraws, the next series of U.S. formations approaches the Japanese force with the same methodical precision documented in their mission logs. These formations, drawn from USS Essex, USS Bunker Hill, USS Hornet, and USS Bennington, enter the area from pre-assigned axes that appear in Task Force 58 strike coordination plans. Their spacing, altitude, and timing reflect a level of preparation shaped by years of carrier operations across the Pacific. Pilots of Air Group 17, Air Group 82, and several others later noted during their debriefings that visibility remained favorable as they neared the target. Light haze persisted, but sunlight passed through intermittently, giving crews clear reference points. The sea below stayed calm, consistent with the meteorological observations recorded in both American and Japanese sources that afternoon. Japanese officers continue performing their roles as trained. On Yamato's bridge, Vice Admiral Seiichi Ito and Captain Kosaku Ariga receive steady updates from teams positioned across the forward and aft superstructures. Their actions and locations during these hours are documented in survivor interviews compiled decades later by Japanese maritime historians. Destroyers Suzutsuki, Fuyuzuki, Kasumi, and Hatsushimo maintain their protective screen, holding formations that Japanese reconstruction studies describe as disciplined despite the increasing operational demands. As new U.S. formations arrive, observers in both navies record the same impression. The sky above the formation grows progressively more active. American pilots operating SB-2C Helldivers maintain higher altitude before beginning controlled descent paths similar to those flown by the earlier waves. Avengers once again establish lateral spacing to proceed with measured, low-altitude approach profiles. These patterns, consistent across multiple squadrons, are repeatedly confirmed through pilot reports preserved in the Naval History and Heritage Command. Yamato continues along her southwestward track. Her speed during this phase, referenced in multiple Japanese sources, ranges near 20 knots. Officers in the ship's central information room relay bearings and estimates of incoming formations to the bridge. The procedures described in these accounts emphasize routine, structured communication, clear reporting lines, and adherence to established commands. Surviving crew members from Yukikes, Hamakes, and Yahagi describe the scene as one defined by concentrated effort rather than confusion. These testimonies, gathered after the war, consistently highlight the professionalism of sailors across the formation. Despite the challenges presented by successive U.S. attack waves, personnel continued following instructions based on long-standing operational doctrine. By around 1345, American strike leaders report through standardized brief transmissions that additional waves have completed their coordinated sequences. In turn, the carriers begin preparing recovery operations. Pilots note their fuel status, altitude, and remaining distance during their return routes, as documented in their officially submitted action reports. Aboard Yamato and the surviving escorts, officers record the cumulative impact of the afternoon's events. Japanese post-war analyses, compiled by the Japan Maritime Self-Defense Forces historical team, reconstruct the timeline showing that by shortly before 1400 hours, the flagship's operational capability was increasingly limited. Communications officers continued to relay updates, and personnel remained at their stations as the ship proceeded through its final navigational adjustments. Shortly after 1400 hours, U.S. aircraft withdrawing from the scene observe a large surface disturbance at the position of the battleship. These observations appear in several American pilot reports submitted after landing aboard their carriers. The position marks the end of Yamato's recorded movement. Her destroyer escorts, moving through the area, respond according to procedures later described by their surviving officers. The Japanese formation's operational timeline concludes at this point, reflected in both U.S. and Japanese reconstructions of the event. Remaining escorts proceed on assigned courses, following directives that appear in their wartime logs and post-war interviews. By the afternoon of April 7, 1945, the engagement known as Operation Tengo reaches its documented end. The events of the day, carefully preserved in carrier aviation records, ship logs, survivor testimonies, and official reports, demonstrate the decisive role of coordinated naval aviation in the final months of the Pacific War. For historians, the operation stands as one of the most thoroughly recorded encounters between surface forces and carrier air power.